What's going on, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of Ask Mish. And I know it's been a minute. I apologize for that. I'm not going to let this ever happen again, but I'm going to tell you what was going on. I was fucking scared. And I've been in business for, I don't know, like 13 years. It takes a lot to rattle me. This was maybe one of the only things that could rattle me, but rattle me it did. And I can't talk about it really because it's still going on. But what I will say is somebody extremely close to me did one of the worst things you could possibly do to somebody in business. And I have the feeling it's not the first time he's done something like this. The way he did it, just looking back over the years, like was so gross and seemed so calculated to me. And I have a really hard time, which I think this experience has taught me how to do this now. But before this, had a really hard time showing up like in an authentic way when I had something in my life going on that I feel like I couldn't talk about. I was like, I should just like give my business up. Fuck it. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And like, it's hard because this has been my life for over a decade. This has been my entire career. Like, I had one small job before this. Like, this is like all I know. And I felt like it was possibly being taken away from me. And so luckily, I have a fucking amazing team of people around me. I am so blessed and lucky. Finally, someone on the team said to me that was helping me manage and deal with this said, look, from now on, Michelle, you're on a need to know basis. So if you don't need to know it, we're just going to take care of it. We're just going to kind of shield you from this thing. You just go off and be you. You do what you're fucking good at. And I was like, okay. And that's a lot for me because I don't give up control all that easily. But like I trust these people and I'm like, all right, cool, done. And one of my clients recently who knew what was going on, she said to me, she's like, hey, like, how's this XYZ situation going? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, wait, what do you mean you don't know? I was like, I honestly like don't know what's going on with it. She's like, how do you not know what's going on? And she's like, but what changed? I was like, and then I thought about it. I was like, the only thing that changed was my perception of it. I just didn't know what was going on. So I couldn't be scared and it couldn't affect me anymore. And I'm very lucky that I had that luxury in this situation. But then it got me thinking, like, all right, at the end of the day, I'm like focused on like all these like things that could happen. Well, what if this? Well, what if that? Well, what if this? And like, how often do we focus on like the what ifs? And how often do the what ifs ever happen? So I actually like at that moment went through it in my head. What if I lose my entire company, which wouldn't happen? Well, let's just say I did. I would just fucking rebuild it. And I'd probably rebuild it better because I have so much more experience now. So, and that's when I really started to realize like nobody can take away from me in this case scenario, at least like me. Like I am nutritious, right? I am whatever. Like, and if I'm not nutritious, I'll be somebody else. But like, nobody could take that away from me. But at the time when I was like living in fear, it felt like it could. And so what? Like, there's nothing that anybody could really take from me other than me, which nobody could take that away. That would just that should be rattling me this much, right? No matter what the outcome is, like it's gonna be okay. I'm still me. I still have my brain, But it took me such a long time to see it because I was so stuck in the fear and so stuck in the what ifs. And I'm not one that struggles with anxiety. I have so many clients that struggle with like chronic anxiety. One of my clients, she said to me recently, she's a doctor and she struggles with severe anxiety, OCD, all of those things. And I've been doing a lot of mindset work with her recently. And she cried to me on the phone the other day because she was like, Michelle, she's like, I always just thought that my problems were biological. I always thought I just had this like chemical imbalance, that this was something I had absolutely no control over. And if the medications weren't working, there was nothing I could do. She's like, I was taught when it comes to my mind that I don't have control over it. And she's like, this is the first time in my life that I actually feel like I do. And I'm not saying that medication is not helpful in a lot of cases. I'm not saying that people don't need it, but this woman who is a doctor, it never even occurred to her that she had some control in her mindset and how she was thinking and how she was perceiving things and the anxiety and the what if. And that's one of the things I love teaching people, starting off with food, but then branching out into other areas of your life, that you have control, like how you're perceiving things. In this situation that I was going through, the literally only thing that changed was my perception of it. Like it was two things. One was I wasn't involved in the day-to-day bullshit anymore. Like I had a shield from that. So somebody else was managing that for me that I trusted. A couple people actually were managing that for me that I trusted. And then also when I went through the what ifs in my head, I was like, all right, like it will be inconvenient, but like I'll be fine. Like it'll be okay. And then just to complete the story for you, as if the universe is actually really testing me, because universe loves to test us, right? So at the same time, independently of this is all going on. And then the company that hosts our app, right, which our whole program is on, emails us and is like, hey guys, so BT Dubs, we're going out of business end of May. So peace out, good luck. And we're like, okay, fuck. Now this was like Marchish. So, or we're like, all right, we have like 2 months, plenty of time, fine. So we're looking for a replacement company. We find them, we're working with them. Like we get the timeline out, and then like we're all ready to like get started, building this out and redoing this thing from scratch. And then the company's like, oh, JK bestie, we're not going out of business end of May. We're going out of business like next week. And then they gave us like a week, and we're scrambling trying to like extract the client data and like just and extract the program, which was in weird files. Like, so it's like you're looking at this and you're like almost like laughing. You're like, all right, cool. Like with all of this stuff, it is fight or flight, right? And there's no reason to freeze, because in most cases, like you're always going to be okay. You are always going to be okay. But I think there's a lot of things that we can do. One of them is like understand like where fear is in our lives and how it affects us and where it comes from, and then how we just sort of like consume that stuff in our day-to-day life and how it affects our minds. So our thoughts and how we talk to ourselves and everything completely change our outcome. That's something I work a lot with my clients on, is the self-talk and how and what your beliefs are, and all of that kind of stuff, which I'm going to do a whole episode on that. I think that's going to be a life-changing episode for a lot of people. But for now, let's just kind of focus on the fear-based stuff, because whatever you think, like that's how that creates what you do and you don't do in the world, right? Like when we feel fear, real fear, we have this like fight or flight response. And some of us have it like with big events in our life and only big events, but a lot of us have it day to day in like these like weird like little micro ways, but it shows up and it prevents us from like doing things out in the world. So like here's a good example. I intentionally do not watch the news. I do not consume the news. I don't watch it. Like obviously if something pops across my social media feed, I'll know about it, but I don't watch the news. My mom, on the other hand, DVRs the news. And I'm not even, and then she does like different multiple channels just to get different perspectives. But my mom lives in fear. Like like my mom thinks like every time my brother and I travel somewhere, she's like, well, you're going to die. 100%. Like, and she's always been like that. She's always lived in fear. But then she like watches the news and she sees all these things. Like, granted, like, look, is New York City a safe place? No. Is it a lot worse now than it was years ago? Absolutely. But she thinks anybody that goes there is likely to die. And she really believes that, right? So fear prevents us from like doing things and like living our lives. News is designed like this intentionally. Like I think I read a study somewhere at one point that there's a much larger percentage of people that watch when the news is negative versus when the news is positive. And the news needs to make money. The news needs viewers. So they're going to put a lot more negative spins and a lot more negative headlines out there and make things seem like doom and gloom so that people tune in and watch. But now you're consuming that content. You're seeing that doom and gloom. And now you're like, oh no, the world's going to end, or the stock market is going to crash, or I'm going to be broke, or I'm going to lose my job, or we're going to be completely like screwed. And like that's how you're going to go about your day, with these like fears, and that's going to affect how you experience your life, your one and only precious little life. I can show up and be the most powerful and have the most powerful impact in the world when my mind is clear. And when I'm in this like fear-based mentality, like my mind is not in a good place. Like for example, let's say I was super focused on the stock market. I don't even know. So let's just say I was, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be losing so much money in my business. So I need to like make more money in my business. I need to like charge. And now my intention about my business is not about helping my clients. Now it's about making more money and just about money, which is a fear-based reaction. Versus if I just focus on my clients and giving my clients the best possible experience all the time, no matter what's going on, I'm much more likely to make more money in general. But when my intention's coming from fear, it can completely backfire on you and change the outcome of the situation. By not focusing on the news, by not focusing on all the negativity in the world, not being ignorant to it, but just not focusing on it, not consuming it, and not letting that be a prominent part of my reality, I can show up better in the world for people and I can have a more powerful impact. But when you're coming from a place of fear, it completely changes the intention around what you're doing, and it gives it the wrong energy, and people can sense that. So it's so important, I think, on a day-to-day level that we're monitoring what we're consuming, what we're taking in, and is this creating fear in our lives? Is this allowing us to show up in the world the way that we want to? Even how you're taking situations. Like I had a situation happen to me and it scared the fuck out of me, right? Like how am I then like processing that? Like how am I protecting myself from that? what is the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario might not be great, but like, all right, let's just talk about what it is. Like, and what would I do? And it just sometimes just like talking yourself through that helps. But in addition to like the day-to-day things that could scare the shit out of us and keep us frozen, there's also things that happen to us in probably childhood when we were younger, things our parents fucked up in us or whatever, that create these like sort of like innate fears. And those are the really, really dangerous ones because those are the ones that show up the most. And those are the ones that make self-sabotage happen. Those are the ones that prevent us from showing up. Those are the ones that help prevent us from achieving our goals. Those are the ones that make us scared to like be the best possible versions of ourselves. But again, if you understand, oh, I act this way in my adult life because of this thing that happened to me here, and this is like actually no longer relevant, it just sort of helps. And this is something that I help a lot of my clients with, in the Mish mindset, the life coaching kind of, which I hate that word life coaching, but we're just going to call it that section of my business. And what I do is, we help see where people are blocked. I work with so many people that are like, I want to do this thing. I know how to do this thing, but I'm not doing the thing. And they're not doing the thing usually because they're scared or they have a weird belief system around it. And it's usually because of something that happened to them when they were younger that is so irrelevant now, and it doesn't even have to have been that big of a deal, but it shaped how they experience these things in present day. And once you sort of make that connection, you can really like work through it and be like, oh, like this is silly, why am I doing this? This is no longer relevant. So let me give you a couple examples, see if this shows up for any of you guys. One is just general anxiety, like my client before was struggling with. And this is when the way I describe it to people is when if something is possible, it seems probable. So if it could happen, like it's likely to happen. And what I tell people is be very, very careful of the movie that you're playing in your head, because your brain doesn't know the difference between what's actually happening to you and what you're telling it is happening to you. This is why you could watch a movie, for example, and cry as if you're actually experiencing what's going on in the movie, but you're not. Your brain doesn't know the difference. So if you're telling your brain over and over and over again, I'm in this scary situation, this is going to happen, the plane's going to crash, like the car's going to crash, like this terrible thing, this outcome's going to happen, your brain is going to be constantly living in fear because it thinks whatever you're telling it is true. So what I tell my clients is be very, very careful of the movie that you're playing in your head. Are you in your imagination living in fear? If something is possible, it doesn't necessarily mean it's probable. So a game that I like to play with my clients is this thing that you're afraid of possible? So I remember one of my clients one time was like, I have so much anxiety, like my kids are going to, I think it was like Great Adventure or something, and I'm terrified that they're like going to get abducted and or throw up on somebody, like on a ride. And I was like, okay, let's break that down. So it's like, is it possible that they could get abducted? Sure. Is it possible they could throw up from a ride? Sure. Okay. And then I asked her, what percentage probable is that likely? Like, what is the percentage, if you had to put a grade to it, that it's likely? And I was like, how likely percentage wise do you think it is that they would get abducted? And she was like, less than 5%. And I said, okay, if whatever percentage you're giving it is less than a grade that you would be happy with on a test, that's how much energy you want to practice giving it. And then we said, well, what do we think the probability is percentage wise of them throwing up on someone? That was a little bit higher. We can call that like 70%. I think one of them was like a puker. Cool. Okay. So that one's a little bit higher. So we can give that one a little attention. What can we do about it? We can make sure they have an extra change of clothes with them. At the end of the day, is that really the worst thing in the world? Like, so like, and then once she kind of like talked through that, and granted, like it's easy for me to say this, it's hard to put it into practice, but just having like little systems like this that you can go back to when you're feeling something like anxiety, it just helps you take you out of that fear and help you be a little bit more present, and helps you get out of your imagination and help you like show up in the world in the way where you're showing up as you, present, not fear-based. All right, so we have situational fears like I was feeling. We have some that are like sort of deep rooted, right? Like anxiety is sort of deep rooted, but some of them are a little bit more specified. And a lot of times those are ones that are a product of something that happened to us in childhood or when we were younger. And because of that, and our brains are trying to keep us safe, we like do weird things as adults, or we hold ourselves back in different ways in adults. And what I have found, the more I connect the dots of like, okay, I do this weird thing, or I'm afraid of this thing as an adult because of this thing that happened to me when I was a kid, sometimes it's so stupid and insignificant, but it's affecting me as an adult. When you realize that, it just sort of makes you show up differently and be less afraid of it in real life because you understand the connection, you understand where the fear comes from. Now, sometimes it's not insignificant, sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's something really terrible that happened to you. But then you have to make the choice as an adult that you're like, all right, I have two choices. I can continue to live in this fear and this safety and make all these sacrifices, or I have this one big, beautiful life. Like, what is my worst case scenario in these things? Let me like overcome this thing and like be the version of myself that I'm supposed to be. So let's get into a couple examples, the most common ones that I've seen of what these look like, where they manifest, like how they kind of come out. And then I'll give you some like tips as to what you can do to start to overcome them so that you could just like live your damn life and like do the damn thing and stop letting fear run your fucking life. So one of the more common ones that I see, and we'll play a fun game. I'll give you the symptoms first and then I'll tell you what the fear is. So you can be like, oh yeah, check, that's me. So this one is me. I had this for a long time and maybe like traces of it still, but listen, we're all works in progress here. So equating your self-worth to like outcomes. So like the need for external validation. So I'm only worthy based on how many likes my Instagram post got, or what so-and-so thinks of me, or how I did on this test, or like how I was perceived. You avoid doing things or even taking risks unless there's a really high chance you're going to succeed. Like you are unlikely to do things that are not going to make you look good, or that you're probably not going to be good at right away. You don't want to be seen as like not having it all together and not having all the answers, or like not being good at something. So again, this is something I struggle with. So like for me, sports, not my thing, wasn't gifted in that area at all. So, but what, now granted, I also don't like sports, but like there was a time where like I just wouldn't participate because I knew I wasn't good at it and I wasn't going to let people see me not be good at something. Another symptom of this one is procrastination. So procrastination, everyone thinks that, oh, you're lazy or procrastinating. No, procrastinating is usually not a sign of laziness. Procrastination is what all of these things are. It's technically a fear of failure. Now, where this comes up, and again, it can come from a million different places, but most commonly it comes from having parents that were like super critical, or like maybe they were very like perfectionistic, or maybe you were like punished when you made mistakes. Like I think a lot of parents only had that as a tool. I know my mom used it as a strong tool growing up. Like we were just punished. Like that was it. Like we weren't like, there was no, at least I don't remember there being like a conversation about it. It was just like, nope, you did something wrong, you are shamed, you are punished. So it kind of just like, again, creates this fear of failure. So if I got a bad grade, I didn't want to show my mom the bad grade. I didn't want to talk about it with her because I just knew I was going to get punished, right? Again, we're not blaming our parents. We're just like connecting the dots for us. It's our responsibility to take control as adults, but like this is where this stuff can come from. Another one is like, let's say as a kid, you were praised highly for achieving things, like, oh my god, like you're so smart, or oh my god, you're in the gifted and talented program, or like you're praised for achievements. Then in your mind you're like, well, if I don't achieve, then I'm not good enough, and then I'm not getting praised. So all those things are fear of failure. So if you have a fear of failure, this is my suggestion. And I got this idea. I was at a conference of some sort and I saw Sarah Blakely talk. And if you don't know who Sarah Blakely is, she is the CEO, founder of Spanx. Brilliant fucking lady. And she was telling this story about how her dad at the dinner table every night would make her and her brother tell the family something that they failed at that day. Like it was required that they failed at something every single day. And because of that, not only did she not have a fear of it, but it was like praised, and that she attributes a large amount of her success for that. So one thing you can do is you can kind of make that a practice, and again, you don't have to do it the way she did it. You can have your own version of it where you start writing down all the things you failed at that day. So that means you have to like try, and then eventually if you keep trying at something, eventually you're going to get good at it, but it sort of desensitizes you from whatever that fear is that failing at something is going to have on you. The second one I see most common, and we'll do it the same way. We'll do symptoms first. So you can do like put a finger down or raise your hand. If you're somebody who you find yourself in very codependent relationships or toxic relationships, and this could be romantically, this could be in your friend groups, this could be even jobs or environments where like you're not getting what you need out of it, right? Like they don't treat you the right way. Maybe it's a friend group, they talk behind your back. Maybe it's a romantic partner that like they don't do the right things. They don't treat you the right way. They don't give you what you need, or it could be a toxic job, but you stay in those toxic environments over being alone, even though you know they're not right for you. You also might be somebody that you might prioritize people liking you over being like authentically yourself. Like you'll tell people like what they want to hear and maybe different versions of that over being you. And if this is you, my friend, struggle with a fear of rejection or a fear of abandonment, same thing. Now, this can come from parents and likely does. So if you didn't receive like consistent love when you were a kid, or maybe like it wasn't unconditional, it was maybe like contingent on whatever was going on in your parents' life. So it could be from parents when you didn't receive consistent or unconditional love, but it could also be they had like really bad friend groups growing up. Like these like girls are, I mean, guys too maybe, but my experience with girls could be very mean. Like this mean girlfriend thing where like you have this group of friends and then they just turn on you, or they make you feel bad or whatever. Like those types of relationships as a child can definitely impact who you are as an adult, but being aware of it is the first step to starting to fix it. Another symptom of this is you might find that you are like a people pleaser, or like you need to like earn people's love by doing things for them. So this is all a fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. Now, if you have a fear of abandonment or fear of rejection, I think you have to do two things. One is you want to really start to have a really fucking positive, amazing relationship with yourself. And you need to really start liking yourself and knowing yourself and talking to yourself and being very aware of your self-talk. So, and the second one is if you do experience something leaving your life, let's say a job, a person, a friend, a partner, or whatever, that's not necessarily rejection. That's not necessarily abandonment. You might have outgrown them. That relationship might have run its course. And now it's time for you to like have that new job, have that next level friend, have that next level relationship. But in order to create the space for that, this person had to leave your life. So it's more about getting you in alignment for like the next iteration, the next better version of yourself. It's not necessarily like that person rejecting you. So it's a really powerful mindset shift to have. And once you start seeing that, it just like opens up all of these doors, and then everything is happening for you, not to you. So let's do two more for funsies. This one I'm doing because I know personally somebody who struggles with this. I used to struggle with this, and I'll tell you guys why I used to struggle with it, which is a ridiculous story, but I will share it with you guys in the name of getting over our fears and transparency. The symptoms, so get ready, are if you're somebody who's like you overthink something like social media posts, or you overthink what you're going to say, you get like analysis paralysis, like you overthink everything. You might be somebody who like can't accept compliments, or like you downplay your accomplishments. Someone's like, "Oh my god, you like won the Nobel Prize." And you're like, "Yeah, it was like NBD." Like you have a hard time like accepting compliments or being proud of yourself for what you've accomplished. And you sort of have a fear of being criticized and people like not liking your work or not liking what you do or judging you for it, but you also have a fear of success. You sort of have a fear of both. And if you have this, my friends, you have a fear of being seen. A lot of times this comes from something that happened. I'll tell you where it came from for me. If you were like ashamed or laughed at or had something like traumatic happen to you when you were a kid where you were like made fun of, that's a lot of times where this comes from. So I will share this with you guys. I was a theater kid growing up. I went to performing arts high school, all that stuff in another lifetime ago. But in sixth grade, and here's the fucked up thing, guys. If you talk to anybody in my sixth grade class, they will remember this. I guarantee you they will. It was traumatizing. I was on stage in front of the whole fucking school and in the middle of my little song, and I threw up in front of the entire fucking school. Can you imagine at 12 years old? Like traumatizing. Like who has to endure that? It was awful. And I didn't really understand like how that affected me, but like obviously I got made fun of. Like obviously it was a thing. Like it was like it was so stupid, but it created a fear of being seen for a long time. It could also happen in more like subtle ways too. So like let's say you're the kind of kid growing up who you were like you're like the good kid, you know, like the chill one. You were like the one that like no one had to worry about. Like the if you watch Modern Family, what's her name? Oh my god, the fact that I can't remember her name, just Alex Dunphy. The one that no one has to. So if you were like that kid also, you might have a little bit of fear of being seen because you found safety in like just being the reliable good kid. But a lot of times the fear of being seen comes from getting made fun of or something traumatic that happened to you as a child. So if that's something that you struggle with, let's go over a couple of things you could do to fix it. So, can you guys imagine if I let this one take over my life? I would never show up on social media. I would never have this podcast. I wouldn't like have the courage to help people. Like this one's a shitty one because I feel like if you're somebody that should be showing up in the world and you have a fear of being seen, like it's gonna that one can crush your soul too. And I know one person who struggles with this, and I hope this person hears this. But all right, so here's a couple ways where you can work on getting over it. So one is when you're like just start showing up in like tiny little ways. And when you show up, so it could be showing up on social media, it could be just like speaking up a little bit in your friend group, like whatever feels safe to you, just like practice doing it in little ways. And then do not replay it in your head through the lens of every other person. Like, don't be like, well, how did this person think it? How did this person think? Like stop experiencing it through the lens of everybody else. Like, just like put it out there, let it be authentic, and then like that's it. And when you do catch yourself in your brain being like, well, what did this person think? What did that person think? Like, just kind of like stop that thought process and be like, well, what do I think? Like, redirect it back to yourself. And it's just a matter of just practice being seen intentionally. And look, if this is something where you're showing up online, like there are going to be haters, but there's a lot more people that you're going to help and affect. And it's really easy for people to be like bullies behind a screen. But don't let that stop you from showing up and being who you are and like having your mark and impact on the world. Because at the end of the day, like you're going to die and be like, okay, cool. Like, what did I do? And if you have a message to say, like, and you didn't get it out there, like that sucks, because for every like one hater you have, there's a million people who are like, oh my God, I love that guy. All right, last one. I'm going to tell you what it is first because this one is a sneaky one and it's one of the hardest fears to deal with, I think. And it is the fear of not being good enough. And this comes about, I'm going to tell you how it comes about first. A lot of times it stems from like parental stuff. So if you had a sibling that was significantly smarter than you or significantly more talented than you, or I've seen it where they have a sibling who had some sort of like illness or injury and just required a lot more attention from the parents, you weren't given enough attention, you feel like you're not good enough. You were maybe only given attention if you did something. So you being you wasn't like enough to get that attention. Like you had to like do something, you had to be performative, and you perceived the lack of ability of your parents to give you attention as something that was like your fault. The problem with this is it doesn't feel like a fear to that person. It feels like an identity. And their entire lives they spend trying to find ways to validate and confirm this identity. So one of the main symptoms is they're like chronically in therapy, right? They're always in therapy, they're always doing something, but they're never like getting anywhere. Now, the reason they're going to therapy, a lot of times they're not aware I'm going to therapy because like I don't feel good enough. Like they're not going to say that. They're going to be like, well, I have anxiety. I'm struggling with anxiety. And what they're really saying is like, well, I'm like scanning for things that I'm doing that I did wrong, right? I always feel like I'm doing something wrong. I always feel like I'm disappointing somebody. I always feel like I'm not good enough, but they'll experience that as anxiety. Or they'll say, I need help with my relationships. A lot of times these people will attract people into their life that will confirm that they're not good enough. They're going to attract people in their life that are likely to like hurt them, that are likely to make them not feel good. And they're experiencing this as a relationship problem, but they're intentionally picking people that will do this because it reinforces their identity, which we'll get to why they need to do that in a second. They might say that they struggle with like self-esteem, and it's because they're always like trying to perform and trying to like make people think that they're good enough. This one's a really, really tricky one to deal with. The problem is that they, when they go to therapy, which they're probably always doing, they're going to either be able to outsmart their therapist in a sense where like they want like the validation, they want to feel like they're good enough, so they're going to go to their therapist, they're going to be like, hi, I'm struggling with these things, I did all the things you said, like I did my homework, but they're not going to like let the therapist in enough to like deal with that core wound and that core like fear. So sometimes the therapy just like stays very surface level. Sometimes the therapist also will just is looking to make them feel better. They sense that this person feels in a lot of pain, and they're dealing with this wound, and their motivation is to kind of make them feel good rather than actually deal with the trauma that they're facing and actually deal with the fear of not being good enough. And then the problem is that if they do have a therapist that does touch on it, the idea of letting go of that fear, because it's not just a fear to them, it's they built an entire personality on not being good enough, because that's been the motivation their whole life, to be overachievers, to be perfectionists, to be that caretaker that like doesn't need anything. And if they find out in therapy that they are actually good enough, then they're like, fuck, I wasted my entire life trying to be good enough, but I already am. So like, what was I doing this for? And that fear is a lot of times so much bigger than the fear of not being good enough. This is a dangerous fear because you could build a whole identity around it. And it can be very frustrating for the people around them because like they sense that something is wrong, but like they don't, it almost feels like they don't want to like fix the problem. But it's not that they don't want to fix it. It's that the pain that is involved with getting over that fear like shakes their entire existence and their motivation for almost everything that they did in their entire life. It's a really, really tricky one to deal with. The other problem with this one is with some of these other fears, like we can like tie it back to like a moment in time. Like you could like it's obvious when you have like, parents that abandon you, or like like a friend group that abandon you, or like with me and my throwing up on stage. Like those are like easy things to kind of point to. With this one, it's just like there's no like trauma event, right? There's nothing that happened like that. You're like, I can point to this and say like this was bad. It's just sort of this neglected feeling that you've had over time, but you can't like quite point to like, well, this is what happened and this is why I'm the way I am. It's just sort of like how you were made to feel your whole life. So it's hard to pinpoint. Now, if you struggle with this, again, this could be a whole episode in and of itself, but like couple like little spark note tips. One is build your sense of internal validation. And I think a good place to start with that is, instead of thinking about the day, for example, and being like, oh, I accomplished all these things, I did all these things, look at me, like think about how you feel. Like, how did I feel today? Because I can be like, oh my God, I like posted on social media today and I saw a lot of clients today and I did all these things today. But if I don't, but how did I feel? It kind of forces me to like prioritize myself rather than like how I'm looking to everybody else, because external validation is everything when you have a fear of not being enough. And the other thing is how you're speaking to yourself. What does your internal dialogue look like? Are you being mean to you? Because a lot of times it's that voice of not being good enough that's playing in your head 24/7. And we'll get into other episodes like how to sort of play with that that internal dialogue. But like, so, and a really interesting way of looking at it, and not everyone does this, but a lot of people do. When you're talking about yourself, you'll say I. So like, oh my God, I have so much to do today. Oh my God, I have this, blah, blah, blah. But if you're talking to yourself and you say the word you, it's usually not your voice. It's like a trauma voice, or it's like your parents' voice. So you'll say like, oh my God, like why did you do that? Or what's wrong with you? Or like how do you think that made you look? Like all of that kind of stuff. So you'll say the word you instead of I. And when you catch yourself and you're berating yourself or making yourself not feel good enough, maybe like stop for a second. There's a lot we can go into with this, but a good place to start is, what am I saying to myself? Would I say that to my kid? Would I say that to a friend? Would I say that to somebody I loved? And if you're not speaking to yourself in a way that you would talk to somebody that you loved like that, got to start to change the internal dialogue. So here's the thing about fears. We don't have time for her. We just don't. Like, we only get one beautiful life. And a lot of the times the things that we're so afraid of, they were they were created at a time when we were younger, where our brains thought we needed those things to keep us safe, but we no longer need those things. Or they're based on things that aren't really ever going to happen anyway. So when we are choosing to live our one little precious beautiful life on these things that are no longer relevant to us or are very unlikely to happen, it's so much worse than if we just choose to live without fear and take that tiny little risk that maybe our biggest fears come true. And even if they do, like, so what? We'll deal with them. To me, at this point, my biggest fear is like not showing up and not doing the things and letting fear control my life in any way, shape, or form, be it in business, my personal life, visibility, whatever. So hopefully this gets you thinking about all of those things. Find me on Instagram at Mish of Nutrish Mish. I'll link it in the show notes. Let me know what you think of this episode, or even better, share it with a friend that maybe needs to hear some of this stuff too. All right, I will catch you guys next Thursday.